How to learn Russian from scratch. Even though my channel is in Russian, I've noticed that part of my audience is English speaking, and more specifically, these are people who are learning or trying to learn Russian. So I'd like to dedicate this video to all you Russian learners out there to share some of my thoughts on the topic and give you a few tips and resources that may help you along the way. You can find all the resources I mentioned in this video and many others in the description box below. So, these are the steps from zero to Russian. Number 1. Learn to read and get comfortable with pronunciation. If you're a complete beginner, take some time, like a week or two, to learn to read Russian. Russian is actually quite easy when it comes to reading, because in many cases, one letter corresponds to one sound. But keep in mind that this isn't always the case. One important thing you should learn early on is that the letter O is often pronounced as A in unstressed positions. So, for example, this word is not moloko but malako. This one is not stomatologia but stomatologia. Another very important principle is that stress in Russian words moves around a lot. For example, if we take the word голова, look at this. Голова, головы, головы, голов, голове, голову. So you can see how the stress shifts throughout the word. This is extremely common in Russian, so don't put mastering stress at the very top of your to-do list when you're starting. Instead, try to learn words together with their stress as they appear in your studying materials, and over time you will start seeing certain patterns that keep repeating. Also, it's not a big deal if you miss the stress sometimes, because most of the time people will still understand you. But there are certain cases where stress changes the meaning of a word, like zamok and zamak. These are worth paying attention to, of course. Keep in mind that it will take time to get used to hearing, distinguishing, and then pronouncing all these new and unusual sounds. Some of the best exercises you can do here are shadowing and using tongue twisters to help you distinguish between similar sounds. If you find it really hard to differentiate sounds like sh and sh, s and z, and others, you can use pronunciation charts and videos that show tongue positions. This isn't very complicated, and after a few tries, you'll start reproducing the sounds much better. After that, it's all about repetition and practice. Another great way to learn the pronunciation is music. If you're a music lover as I am, you can find a lot of good bands in Russian, listen to their songs, and try to sing along. Some of my personal favorites are Zemfira and Pятница, but there are many other cool ones such as Aquarium, Bravo, B2, Leningrad, etc. Another good pronunciation tip is to find a Russian speaker who is learning your native language. Listen to their speech and pay attention to the kinds of sounds they have trouble with. This can really help you understand which sounds are different in Russian and in your language, and these are the ones you should focus on more. When you're doing shadowing, keep in mind that you don't need to understand everything that's being said. Your goal with this exercise is to copy the rhythm, melody, pronunciation, and word stress as closely as possible, because you're basically training your mouth and tongue to feel more comfortable with new sounds and positions. And finally, give yourself time and don't be too hard on yourself. If you're an adult, chances are you'll have an accent when you speak any foreign language, not just Russian. And that's absolutely normal. Some sounds are going to be very difficult to reproduce at first, and that's completely fine. Over time, you'll notice that some pronunciation mistakes are more tolerated because they don't interfere with meaning, while others are better corrected because they can confuse the person you're talking to. A classic example is жутко and шутка. They may sound similar to you, but one means something like creepy or terrible, while the other one means a joke. My personal issue is the distinction between the Russian sounds I and I. It's because we don't have the second one in Serbian, and I still sometimes mix them up. But I've learned to be extra careful with words where this sound can change the meaning, like забыть and забить. Быть и бить. So the main idea is to focus on learning the sounds as much as you can at the beginning, because it'll be much easier to deal with everything else once you have the sounds down. Number 2, organize your study materials. Nowadays, there are tons of resources for learning Russian. You can choose a YouTube course for complete beginners, such as this one or this one. And in most of them, you'll have a teacher who guides you through the basics of the most frequent grammar points and structures. You can also use a self-study course like a Simil, where you get acquainted with the basics through short stories and dialogues. Great thing about a Simil is the fact that it goes with audio files that accompany all the dialogues in the book. By the way, bear in mind that developing our listening skills in another language takes a lot of time, and you should try to work on them as much as you can. This should always be a priority. It doesn't mean much if you can speak, but you can't understand the other person. It just makes it impossible for you to have a decent conversation. So listening always comes first. So all of these resources are meant to help you learn noun, adjective, and pronoun cases as well as verb aspects. Russian nouns are easily categorized into genders, thankfully not like in German. So if you learn, for example, a short phrase with a feminine noun in the accusative case, you're actually covering a whole group of nouns that follow the same pattern. If you know how to say вижу женщину, you'll also be able to say that you see a school, a book, a car, because they all belong to the same group and follow the same pattern. Of course, there are exceptions, but things get much easier once you understand and apply the general rule. So, the cases and the verb aspects. These two grammar points are very important for understanding Russian and being able to communicate clearly. Cases express relationships between elements in a sentence, and verb aspects give us all the details we need about the action. What kind of action it is it the ongoing one, the repeated one, the completed one? They give us the tense difference, etc. My point is, don't avoid basic grammar at the beginning. It'll be much easier to recognize patterns and understand how the language works later on with more complex concepts. Combined with immersion, this will give you structure, help you build a solid foundation, and allow you to start using Russian more intuitively over time. Don't rush it. Take your time, especially if these structures are very different from your native language. With time and practice, you'll get more comfortable, I promise. Number 3, organize your immersion materials. So the previous step was about conscious learning and analysis. But if that's all you do, you won't get very far. You need to immerse yourself in the language, and by that I mean regular listening in the first place and then reading as well. You can easily find listening materials online for different levels by typing something like Comprehensible Input Russian A1. I really like Russian with Max and Russian Radio Show. They're great because they also offer transcriptions so you can follow along. If you can print them out, even better. You can underline words and phrases you want to revisit later and slowly over time build your own personal course book. These materials also work perfectly for shadowing practice. What's especially nice about these two channels is that they talk about cultural aspects of Russian life, so you don't end up being a fluent ignorant when talking to native speakers. When choosing listening materials for beginners, make sure the transcripts are short, suitable for your level, and that you can see the text while listening. This is very important at the beginning, because understanding spoken language without the visual support can be really hard. It'll also help you learn correct pronunciation and word stress. As for reading, many Russian materials for beginners include marked stress, which makes a huge difference. The course books I use with my students do this, and as the level increases, those stress marks gradually disappear from words students are expected to already know. There are plenty of short stories available online, but if you're looking for something more authentic, I'd recommend Peekaboo. It's something like Reddit, but in Russian. It's not for complete beginners, no, but I think at around A2 you can already understand some posts. It's unadapted and you'll need to search a bit to find content you like, but the good news is it's authentic, full of jokes and memes, and I really like the idea of consuming language in small portions. Whatever immersion materials you choose, make sure you spend more time on immersion immersion than on active study. Like the approximate proportion should probably be 70 to 30. And yes, by immersion, I also mean shadowing, especially at the beginning. Shadowing and listening should be your main activities. And finally, add conversations. Do the previous steps every day for at least an hour. After a few months, once you've shadowed the hell out of Russian, can handle simple dialogues and have a solid routine, it's time to go out into the real world and find yourself a Russian speaker. This doesn't have to be a professional teacher, just needs to be someone you feel comfortable with, someone you can build confidence with, and talk about different topics. You can start with one session a week and see how it goes. And remember, slow and steady really does win the race. Russian is not an easy language, but it's incredibly interesting. Be patient with yourself, enjoy the process, and trust that all these small steps you're taking will add up over time. One day you'll look back and realize that Russian doesn't sound nearly as scary as it once did, and that's a pretty great feeling.